Welcome! In this video we'll be taking a quick look at Lescar, a epic grade support class Elune. Taking a look at his base stats, at 6-star max level, he has a decent HP of 34k, with his physical and magic defense also being at decent amounts at 4.5 and 4.6k respectively. His attack at 3.3k is low, but he is a support class and usually not used as a damage dealer. His speed at 104 puts him still at the lower end of the mid-range, but not too slow. As he is leveled up, transcendenced up to his max of +5, his HP ends up at a decent 51k, with his attack stopping at 5 and his physical and magic defense ending at decent 6.8 to 6.9k. This makes him somewhat tanky to deal with, along with his skills and passive, which also make him a little bit more problematic to deal with. Starting in at his skills, his first skill is a frontline only single target attack dealing physical damage. Starts off at 70 plus 95% of his attack as physical damage. As this skill is leveled up, it goes up to a 640 plus 130% of his attack as physical damage. His special skill, which is a good skill to use for him, and is usually something that is used very often, especially in PvP content. This skill will deal magic damage equal to 100 plus 140% of his attack. This will do to the frontline only enemies, so keep that in mind. The skill also at level 1 removes one random buff that they have. He is then able to gain 1 soul for each buff that's removed. As he only removes 1 buff, he gains 1 soul. However, as the skill is leveled up to its max level of 6, it goes up to a 970 plus 191% of his attack stat as magic damage. This makes the skill actually hit pretty decent, even with his low base attack. The skill also goes up to removing 2 random buffs from the enemy and obtaining 1 soul for each buff removed, meaning that if he removes 2 buffs, your team gets 2 souls, as well as him doing decent amount of damage. Looking in at his ultimate skill, and one of the best reasons for using him, especially in PvP, this skill heals the HP of all allies by 90 plus 120% of his attack and removes all of their debuffs. Something to keep in mind, however, is that I believe that the heal goes before the removal of debuffs, so that if you have something that does soul damage to you, if you have healing, like the zombie effect, then you will take damage instead of getting the heal. It is something to keep in mind when using him. As the skill levels up to 6, the heal goes up to a very nice 960 plus 164% of his attack and removes all debuffs. This makes him very good as he can cleanse any debuffs from your team, meaning paralysis, stuns, defense breaks, and the like. He can cleanse them off, making your team able to move. This skill also heals, meaning that if you're attacked with an AoE at the beginning of a fight that stuns or paralyzes everyone on your team, then you can use this skill on him and it will cleanse your team and heal them up as he does that. The first passive. This one increases the resistance rate of all status effects by 20% for each enemy that is alive. He receives 1 soul each time he resists a status effect, which is very similar to the rings of the full moon set, whereas if you resist a status effect you gain a soul. This is done as part of his passive. Looking at his passive 2, this one, when he does remove a buff from an enemy, he gains a barrier equal to 10% of his max HP for each effect removed for 2 turns, meaning that if he removes 2 effects, he gets 20% of his max HP as a barrier. His passive 3. This one increases his attack by 5% for each soul that he has as soon as he gets a turn. This effect is removed at the end of the turn. meaning that he does do some damage, especially with his special skill being a magic damage skill. He can do a significant amount of damage even to somewhat tanky targets if he has a lot of souls at the beginning of his turn. Looking at the skill gems for him, his first skill is a physical damage skill, and recommended is 2 red and an orange for physical damage and crit rate. This skill, the bonus, has a 5% chance to stun the target for 1 turn, as this skill really doesn't do anything else, and it is not his primary source of damage. Going with the recommended red, red, orange gems for this, having the 5% chance to stun isn't a bad option. However, you can also go with more damage if you want for more physical or more crit rate on the skill. His second skill, which is his strip and magic damaging skill, the recommended is 2 blue for magic damage and the violet for the increased speed. This skill bonus gives him a 5% chance of healing his own HP by the amount equal to 100% of the damage. As the chance is low, it's not something you really have to worry about. You can instead go with an orange potentially instead and go for the crit rate, or you can go with just more magic damage on it, making him hit a little bit harder with the skill. The last one, which is his heal as well as his cleanse. The skill that recommended is green, green, violet. However, the buff is restore 1 soul with 10% chance, as this isn't too bad of a chance but is still pretty low. And you want to use him as an additional healer, then going with the full green set of green gems for the healing might be a better option if that's what you prefer. Looking at his dimension slate, stats that you would want to focus on him are anything to make him tankier, physical, magic defense, as well as HP. As he is capable of doing some damage, attack is not a bad option for him, neither is crit and crit power, but not one you would want to focus on. The attack speed is, however, something you would want to get for him, as the attack speed is going to help him move quickly. And in most cases, especially in air battles, you want him to move very quickly on your team so that he can cleanse if needed on turn 1 or potentially strip with his second skill. This allows him to have a turn to cleanse your team if they have, say, a provoke from a Fahrenheit at the beginning of the turn, or if they have any other debuffs. If you got outsped by the enemy team, such as Anika, AoE stunning you, having him move quickly will allow you to cleanse all of those stuns off and then take turns. Gear for him can vary as much as you want. Some recommended is the full moon set, just a full moon set to give him a chance of reflecting debuffs back to the enemy. Other sets you can go with are the corrupted Elune set to give him more chances of obtaining souls. The ring recommendation would definitely be the full moon set ring, as that ring also provides a soul for each time he resists a debuff. That, combined with his passive, makes it easy for him to get souls quickly. Anything that gives him additional tanky stats, such as PDEF, MDEF, bonuses, and the like, are recommended for him, as you will typically not be using him as a damage dealer. Going with HP on the offhand is usually the recommended to make him more tankier and harder to kill. Otherwise, enemy teams might focus him down quickly if they notice that he is too squishy. This would mean that they wouldn't have to worry about him cleansing anymore or allowing him to resist the debuffs that they try to apply. Lescar is a good PvP Elune, used in many situations, especially for air battles and guild battles, as an entry-level type cleanser for your team. He is something to be used. He can also be used as a quasi-stripper for stripping the frontline enemies to remove any buffs so that you can kill them faster. His main use, however, though, is his cleansing and additional heals. His ultimate skill, the heal on it, is quite good and can fully heal a team if he has good enough stats on him and potentially an attack buff to increase that heal amount. He is something that is worth building if you don't have other options or you want an additional option for potentially the dailies for boss battles whenever they tell you that you cannot bring a healer. Lescar is not a bad option for bringing then, as he is a healer, but he's a support class, but he can heal as well as cleanse. That's going to be it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I will answer them as soon as possible. Thank you.